can always go back and get a copy of the previous meeting if you missed one. So, all right, well, as a way of saying hello, thank you all for being here and joining us for our first meeting. My name's April, if we haven't connected yet before. You've probably seen me on some of the emails and assorted other fun things. I am an open source strategist here at Google. So I'm specifically focused on open source awesomeness, specifically with our gaming open source projects, so OpenMatch and Agoniz at the moment. So happy to help with any sort of questions or ideas you have around getting involved, contributing, all of that great stuff. Just feel free to reach out. I believe my email is in the doc. Yes, it is. So anytime you need anything, just shoot me an email. Happy to help out. I have a couple of announcements that I just wanted to call out to folks. And again, the links are in the working doc. But the first is that there's this really exciting thing happening. We've been working with the Linux Foundation on this interest that we're seeing now with gaming and open source. There's been a lot more of discussion around this and kind of talking through some of the things that we can do to make this a bigger, broader community. So the Linux Foundation has an event in August this year. It is the Open Source Summit North America. It takes place in San Diego. Apparently this year, seems like all the conferences are in San Diego. So it's in August, and right now there's a call for papers. So if you're interested in speaking, the CFP is closing May 4th, so that's next week. Highly recommend applying. Right now, it's basically a half-day event. Sessions run about 35 minutes. If you've never presented at a Linux Foundation event before, they do a really great job with speaker prep and kind of helping out, making sure that you got all the resources you need as a speaker. So even if you're first time and not sure about speaking, I highly recommend going ahead and submitting a talk. And we are always happy to help, review and kind of help you prep up as well. So highly recommend checking that out. And if nothing else, check out the link and please do join us. I think it's going to be great. This is a really great kickoff for getting this kind of involvement going around open source and gaming. So the second thing is Season of Docs. If you're at all familiar with the Google Summer of Code, which is where different open source projects apply to have folks work on their projects during a summer. It's usually students. Season of Docs is very similar, except it's all about docs. And as Lindsay indicated, we need some help with those. So we've applied to be in Season of Docs. The process for reviewing is happening now, and we should know by the end of the month if we're accepted. And then if we are accepted, we will get whoever, then the process goes where writers will go and apply to be part of the program. And the process is that we have a document of basically our wish list for documentation. So any ideas you have, anything that you think, gosh, we really need this, I highly encourage you to put it in that doc, because people that are applying as writers in the program are going to use that doc to determine what cool project they want to work on. So that'll also give them some help as they write their application. And should we not get accepted, your work is not in vain. We'll turn it into issues for a documentation repo as we go forward. So please do, if you've got any ideas for cool stuff that would make your life easier to use or develop on OpenMatch, please add it there and we'll get it on the list. All right, does anybody else have any announcements, anything general they kind of want to share?
April, I do. My announcement is we don't have a meeting room starting at 10:30. And so I was going to ask, we might be able to find one, but I was going to ask if maybe we could accelerate and get into kind of maybe the roadmap, which is, I think, probably the primary topic that a lot of people want to hear about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd hoped to do a whole bunch of other stuff, but just kind of in the interest of time, I figured why not go right to the meaty stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll present the roadmap. do I just go present? How does this?
Same thing.
Okay.
Well, what's happening? We did another announcement is we cut the release candidate for 0.5 yesterday, or the day before. It was released yesterday. It should be on your calendar.
You just do go present and
I'm on go present.
Oh, that's right.
It doesn't show me.
it is ZSB
CSB
dash EFKR dash AQH. It rolls right off the tongue.
Sorry, Scott, you can. No, that's basically it. We're validating it now, and then we'll cut the proper release probably in the next couple days.
Can everybody see that? Good.
Perfect. Okay. So, yes, I was going to start with exactly that. So I guess right now we are in RC for OpenMatch .5, and that's the current state. I updated the documentation to kind of reflect all the changes that have happened in RC. And as a part of that update, what went through was the updated future roadmap as well. So now if you kind of go on the OpenMatch documentation page for the roadmap, it kind of reflects what the current thinking around the roadmap is. Quick context on .5 itself. Although we are already close to shipping it, we intended .5 to be a usability kind of a release. So the goal at the end of .5 was supposed to be that somebody could just pick it up, try it, and have concrete documentation to do that. We intended to make builds a lot simpler, deploying simpler. So essentially, the end-to-end experience for somebody trying OpenMatch for the first time was intended to be a lot simpler in .5. With the change documentation, I urge everybody to kind of go try this out. It should actually, by design, not take so much time. It should actually also not require, the basic set of steps don't even require you to pull the code down. They should actually just be using artifacts hosted in Google Storage. So you should try those out and give us feedback while we are in RC, so that we are intending to cut the actual release tomorrow. But if folks run into any glitches, please let us know. So that's .5. Some of the key things that also went into .5 worth noting are a gRPC-based serving, like a harness. So now we have completely deprecated the mechanism to actually schedule MMFs as Kubernetes jobs. The only thing now supported is to stand up your MMF as a harness, and OpenMatch will call into that harness. The same goes with the evaluator. So basically, there was a component which was the orchestrator that's been completely deprecated now. For now, the evaluator itself is also a persistent service that stands up and essentially it does the evaluation periodically. But again, there is no trigger into the evaluator. So those the only reason I mentioned those as critical is because that has significantly changed the examples and the test clients and stuff we had. So folks who were using the old ones should take a look at the new ones and kind of work from there. And also a note there is now we only have Golang examples for now. Like if there is interest, we can kind of have contributions to build other language harnesses and take it from there. But right now we just have the Golang harness checked in. That's .5. .6, at a high level, the goal for .6, now that we have .5 as usable, is we've been discussing a lot of like the futuristic requirements and like with respect to scale and productionization with the Unity folks, and based on their experience using OpenMatch so far as well. And so what we've come up with is a set of like a proposal that is essentially a set of changes to the API and data model for OpenMatch. I've created a proposal for this. I've added the actual like the API surface and the new data model and the justification for that in there. I was talking about it with Ish last week as well. So just go over that. We would love feedback on that. It's to be clear, it's kind of a significant breaking change from .5 in terms of just the API surface. We may even end up renaming the services as we know them. So internally, we still need to discuss and suggestions are welcome, but we don't want to kind of disrupt like the current one. So we may actually do like not an in-place change, but like a parallel services stand-up kind of a thing to while you know the current ones are still up and running. But the goal for .6 is essentially this kind of should hopefully be like, we still have room to change the APIs till 1.0, but for a major hey, this is what we think is like the future direction. This intends to be that API, major breaking API change. So hopefully we should all agree on how the changes, and if not, we can get feedback and iterate on them. But basically the idea is that .6, we should have like a solid API surface, which can then have minor tweaks, but folks should be comfortable building their matchmakers against this with a hope that it doesn't completely break them in between this and .1. So that's kind of the goal here. The other thing I mentioned there is maturity. So what that really means is we would be actually adding. So today there aren't many test cases, end-to-end test cases, unit tests, and stuff like that. So hopefully, as we are kind of building these new API surfaces, we intend to add testability, be authoritative about what the test frameworks should be like, add tests for each of these components, end-to-end tests. We already have CI set up in this current version, so we'll hopefully have the test pre-submits and the test wired up into the CI and stuff like that, so we kind of get better quality releases out in future. Outside of that, let me see if anything pops up. I spoke about the test. Yes, obviously with the API change, we'll make sure that all of the existing examples, the harness, the new tools and stuff like that reflect the API changes. The one thing I would want to make sure is on the radar is if for .5 we build more harnesses for different languages, then those would need to potentially be ported to whatever changes happen in .6. So I just would want folks to be mindful of if you really need something for .5, yeah, we can work and make sure that we can port it later. If you can wait, then it might as well. .6 might be the version you kind of build stuff against. That's kind of the goal. So that's .6. Before I move to .7, since .6 is major, any questions here?
I guess a small note from our end is we've been building on top of where we're headed with the .6 API, and it seems to be working pretty well. We have some kind of end-to-end testing that we've been doing, and so far everything seems to be moving pretty good. So this is really exciting.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so beyond that, the one note I'll give for .7 and beyond is, since that's a little further out, and actually let me speak to the release cadence first. So we started off with a 6-week release cadence, and that was something we were working as a principle. I think for .5 we made it much shorter, it was 3 weeks kind of a turnaround, 3 or 4 weeks, and for .6 it might be slightly longer than that. We'll see. We'll try to still shoot for 6 weeks, but based on the magnitude of changes and pretty much the changes to all the examples and harnesses and everything, it might we might have some wiggle room there. After that, hopefully we'll settle into a specific release cadence. April, I'm not sure if the release cadence for OpenMatch and Agonis and everything kind of tied in the same foundation should necessarily match, or whether is there any guidance there with just the cadence itself?
6 weeks is usually a good routine for folks, but like you said, sometimes it's shorter, and that's good. So there's no hard dependency at the moment. I just think it's it's good to kind of have a standard that we keep folks to. But I just got questioned last night on another project of why the releases were all in a weird cadence. Oh, it happens.
Okay. Cool. So that's it. I think, so for .7, hopefully we'll have a good release cadence between .7 and .0. To clarify my thoughts on .7, right now I have everything that we think is required for productionizing should be in .7. So the reason I don't call it a 1.0 yet is I'm sure between now and finishing .6, we'll have a lot of other feature requests and things will get prioritized out of there. But if you see the list for .7, that's kind of a lot of things there to actually get OpenMatch to a point where folks could host it in production. Kind of those are the kind of features there. So again, the reason I'm saying that is we may have more feature work that gets front loaded, and some of those things get pushed out to the .8, .9s or whatnot. But right now, .7 is my bucket for everything that's on the horizon. So just to go over them really quickly, there is load testing. That's kind of a key. There is some test dashboards and more mature testability. Monitoring, metrics collection, analytics, and a bunch of these things are already there. I just think they haven't kind of we haven't had a thorough how do these fit into the big picture. There is, I remember Caleb and I spoke about event-based mechanism for triggering all the async stuff that's happening in OpenMatch. Stuff like that could all be on the .7 roadmap, and we can then break it down once we are closer to that into finer milestones between .7 and 1.0. The other feature, the other features that I listed out are, these are basically stuff that's gonna keep happening by the side. I don't think I want to tie them to a specific release, but like it's documentation, building the harnesses and whatnot. I'll have issues for these, and we can just pick them up on any release. Like we need to change documentation for every release, but hopefully the reason I have listed them out is that 1.0, I'm hoping we have a really good user guide, some tutorials, the things listed here should kind of be really solid by 1.0. They can keep happening through the intermediate releases, but by 1.0, they need to really be solid. So that's why I've kind of listed them out here. A last note about 1.1, it's interesting because it's not really like we are thinking about 1.1 just yet. Right now in my mind, 1.1 is a bucket of things that are not 1.0 essentially, or don't fit in the definition of OpenMatch as a framework's 1.0. Now, that said, the reason I mentioned that is because some of the things here may be very interesting to folks, and I don't necessarily think they should be done after OpenMatch hits 1.0. They can totally be picked up parallelly after .6, hopefully, because .6 will kind of set the new APIs and stuff like that. But after that, let's say director. Now, you could pick up the director while .7 is happening. I just don't think that falls under OpenMatches. Like OpenMatch 1.0 would not block because an Agonis director is missing or so. So it kind of falls, in my mind, beyond the realm of OpenMatch as a framework. So there would actually be a lot of other services here folks may be interested in, like a group service potentially and stuff like that. I feel free to add more ideas here, and I mean feel free to even bring them up, start working on them. It's not really necessarily meant to be after 1.0, but it's just that I don't think they fit in necessarily OpenMatch 1.0's definition. That's kind of the bucket of things that I'm listing out here. So any questions, thoughts?
That's good. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. And yeah, I'll work with, I've already pinged some folks with the detailed API design. I'll work with folks to make sure at least folks who are using things or are invested in using them for future aren't completely surprised by what's in it. But yeah.
So 10 minutes left. April, do you want to get into maybe the governance policy?
Sure. I didn't know if you wanted to also, do you want to introduce the team or?
Oh. Yeah, I think we've, I'm just looking at the call.
Okay.
I think we've met just about everybody on here.
Cool.
It appears that we have Unity, Psyonix, and Google in the room. Is there anybody else on the call that?
Yeah, I'm from Kabam.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And Lindsay. Okay. Yeah, well, let's do introductions really quick. So I'm Anthony Feddersen. I'm a software engineering manager here in Kirkland. I helped start the cloud gaming team in December. The team has grown pretty quickly, and our time is kind of split between working on the Agonis open source project and OpenMatch. As you can see, everybody here in the room are the developers for OpenMatch from the Google side. So everybody here is full-time. I'm going to be working on all the things that Saurabh just mentioned. Just really quick, Lindsay, are you a user of OpenMatch or?
Yeah, so we're just investigating if we can use it for an upcoming game that we have. So yeah, I'm a backend software engineer on our team. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So if you ever have any questions, I mean, we're on Slack. We have a mailing list.
I think I've already bugged Saurabh a couple times.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Scott, you want to go next?
I'm Scott, software engineer on the team. I don't know if there's more to say than that.
Okay.
I'm Jeremy Edwards. I've been working on OpenMatch since about January of this year, and so Saurabh and I have been working to beef it up to where it is now, and we'll take it into the future. With some of that.
I'm Irfan. I've been working on OpenMatch for over a month.
Yeah, I'm Saurabh. I've been working on OpenMatch since February. It's exciting.
Unity folks, you want to say
hi? Sure. My name's Caleb. I'm over on the Unity side. I've been working on OpenMatch for about a year.
And I'm Jesse. I'm lead engineer on all of our connected game stuff, so helping out where I can with open match and matchmaking.
Awesome.
And then we heard from Lindsay. Ish, do you want to say hi? No one has to be polite. I was going to say that works too. I hate people on the spot. So yeah, the other thing that we wanted to talk through real quick is just kind of an overall of the governance for the project. Excuse me. This project was founded by Google and Unity. So as far as the decisions that get made about, for instance, what goes in a roadmap and what constitutes a release, things like that, those are done by a technical steering committee, which right now is consisting of folks from Google and folks from Unity. As others get more involved with actual, contributing to the project, whether that's code, documentation, any of the varied ways you can contribute, we'll look at adding others to the steering committee. It's really about, wanting to keep it at that perfect number where we can make decisions quickly and keep velocity going and keep things moving. But we also want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to give their feedback and can, have the diversity of different companies and users that are represented. So if you're not on the TSC, but you're interested in getting there, we'll have more details on what that looks like. Since we are still a new project, haven't quite figured out what the criteria is yet. Ideas are, of course, welcome. And even if you're not on the committee, of course, when we have the API proposal is a great example, we want to hear your feedback. So we're setting up meetings now. They will probably be public. We'll talk about it. Depends on what all gets said in it. But the idea is that you'll be able to join. Same thing if we get to the point later on down the road where we want to create a working group. Again, we're still very early, probably not needing that just yet. But at a certain point, for instance, we mentioned looking at maybe other frameworks, then we would potentially create a working group for that. So again, if there's ever something that you think you would like to split off and kind of focus more on, we'll have the process in place to get that set up. We're not quite Kubernetes size yet, so we have a little flexibility in it, and I never want 65 SIGs. I love Kubernetes, but no. But yeah, so we're taking some learnings from that process. But yeah, we'll have the technical steering committee that'll make the core technical decisions. And then there's an overall governance committee that'll be meeting to kind of dig deep into more of those questions around how one actually gets a seat on the different committees and how you use the logo and things like that, fun stuff like that. If you're interested in serving on that, please reach out as well. If you're just a government nerd like I am, that's a good opportunity to put some of the skills to use. Right now, one thing that I just want to highlight, especially as we're talking about proposals and things like that, if we can keep as much of the conversations in GitHub as possible, that's going to make life so much easier for all of us. It's great, Slack is some people love it, some people hate it tool. The problem with chat is that when folks are in different time zones, especially our friends in Japan, they're asleep while we're awake in North America, and they might go and look at the chat and there's 500 lines and no one's going to read all of that. So they might miss something that's key. And that's when we run into trouble later when we talk about, changing big breaking changes. So we want to make sure we're having as many conversations as possible on GitHub. There's also the mailing list, but we're trying to make GitHub kind of the source of truth for all of our big decisions. That's a very quick high-level overview. Does anybody have any big questions? The other big thing is that we are in the process of, we're going to move OpenMatch to its own GitHub. Well, not its own, but we're going to create a new GitHub organization for kind of all of these open source gaming projects. So OpenMatch will have its own repo within that. And the reason for that is it gives us a lot more flexibility. We can do some of the cool stuff like, some of the great bots and things that like Kubernetes has built that streamlines their workflow. It also is going to allow us to create, a separate repo just for governance, just for community, just for docs, just for the website, things like that. So it'll make it a lot easier for those of you who want to get involved in places other than core code. It'll be a lot easier for you to jump in and get involved there. So knock on something. I will have that ready to go, hopefully mid-March at the very latest. We're waiting on a couple of steps, but so if anyone's a real big GitHub, fan and wants to help out with that, let me know.
Awesome.
And
So
Lindsay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're probably about to lose the room in about a minute. So thank you for setting this up. I just didn't want to say goodbye like in a real hurry.
It's open source. Whatever the next meeting is, they should just join us and start.
We'll hang out here as long as we can until we get kicked out. But I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Yeah. No, I think the only other thing we really had was, Lindsay, you had made a question in the doc about documentation, which, yes, absolutely agree. I love your idea about a branch, and I wanted to put that to the core team and see what they thought. I don't know if you guys saw the question. Since master is fluid right now, could there be a branch that you direct new users to so we can continue to investigate OpenMatch without experiencing delays due to the volatility? Sorry.
That's a fair question.
That should be the 0.5 branch, which was just created.
Okay, so yeah, just happened.
Oh, okay, great. That's a branch. Perfect.
Yeah. So we are going forward for every point release, there will be a new branch, and then we'll have the release candidates on there, and then the official release for the point release, and then we'll have hot fixes go on that branch as well. So the latest point release should have its own branch with all of, which should be more stable, and then master is going to be the working branch.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really helpful. Yeah, and Lindsay, if there, especially since you are someone who's trying to use it, if you go through the process, if there's something that you come across and you're like, wow, this was really painful, let us know. We can add that to that documentation wish list. And that gives us a great indicator of what users are needing. So
sure.
Perfect. And I just want to reiterate that fresh documentation just got updated like early today morning, and that's kind of revamped a lot of documentation. I would actually love feedback on like how the new documentation looks like and whether that's a little more intuitive. So if you can just give it a shot, that would be awesome.
Definitely. And I'm actually working on macOS, so if you like, I could send you guys my steps if I need to do additional steps to set up some extra library or whatever. I could send that to you guys if you'd like to include macOS steps on the document.
I actually today morning created an issue for like, hey, these steps don't work so well on macOS.
Right.
You can just assign that issue to yourself and like send out a change on that. That would be awesome.
Sure. Yeah, I can do
Congratulations. There's your first contribution. Yeah, documentation, of course, is a big area. So absolutely jump right in. All are welcome.
I do want to clarify, we are doing documentation on master, not on the 0.5 branch.
It'll go into the 0.5 though, right? This documentation.
RC,
yeah. I mean, it has to. This is specific to 0.5, so we'll have to pull it in. Yeah.
Cool. Another reason why a docs repo down the road will make life a lot easier.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, for now, like wherever you get it, we can always do the heavy lifting of moving things if need be. It's just whatever we can do to make the process easier. So.
Perfect.
Does anybody else have any general questions or anything? I mean, I know, half of you are really up on the code. But does anybody have any questions or kind of want to talk through something on the roadmap?
I have one more question that I didn't write down. I'm sorry. Just from the roadmap that's here, the 1.0 is supposed to be released in approximately 18 weeks. Is that what I can try to look forward to?
Yes. So let me see. Yeah. Right now, like if you look at 6 and extrapolate that, yeah, between 18 to 24 is kind of where I would land 1.0.
Okay. I know that my lead will want to know that information. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. Maybe we can put kind of like rough timeline dates in there for the release. Of course, as with all things open source, subject to change, but I know it helps folks to just have a rough idea of like what month or whatever.
Yeah. And again, I think .6, we'll have a lot more control over like how that looks like. And then a lot of it just depends on the feedback and where we land with .6. So
And Lindsay, I was going to say, 1.0 or general availability or alpha beta, they all kind of have different meanings to different people. So I think, as we move along, if you're not seeing stuff go in that you think is important for you to launch your game, like just please let us know.
Sure.
And just let us know what your requirements are, and we can see if we can accelerate those things.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, if nobody's got anything else, we can wrap this one up. Like I said, these will be monthly, so you should have it all on your calendar for the last. No, Google does it weird. It's the 4th Wednesday of every month. You can't just say the last Wednesday. So 4th Wednesday of every month, same time. We can always adjust the time. Lindsay and I were chatting about, time zones people are in, but it seems like for this group at least, this is a good one. But we can always adjust as we go forward for the fun of time zones. If you have any questions or anything that you'd like to share at a future meeting, always add it to the doc. You're always welcome to reach out to me, of course, with any help or anything. But this is your meeting. So anything you want to show, share, talk about, feel free. The floor will be yours. So thanks again for joining. We did record. I'll get the recording up on YouTube, and I'll send a link out with the working doc. So if you want to share it with other folks on your team or other folks that are interested in the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
This was
Thanks, everybody. Bye.